Okay, hi Bill, how are you?
Hi, Berta. Caroline, how are you? Nice to see you, Kevin.
I wanted to ask you what brought you initially to venture capital and how has this evolved to ultimately focus on technology for good?
I sort of stumbled into technology because I was always drawn to electronics and started off as a little bit of a hardware hacker when I was in high school. That led me to getting a degree in electrical engineering, and I ended up being trained as a computer chip designer. That brought me to Silicon Valley in the 80s when companies like Apple and Intel were arguably still startups. And I've just sort of evolved with the technology that has sprung forth from Silicon Valley, moving from computer chips to equipment made out of those chips to networks built out of those boxes, meaning the internet, and then applications built on top, and now data science. And with those waves, the technology has migrated from people or engineers selling technology to other engineers at the beginning to mass adoption of technology by consumers. And as it's reached, kind of full force impact on society at scale, it's coincided with a time when people care a lot more about the environment because they have to. And the world has been, I think, developing so quickly that there's a lot of side effect from technology that's destructive to this planet that happened arguably without people really knowing what was happening while it was happening. And I think we're at a point in time now where technology, with its scale potential to impact change, can be applied to solve some of the problems we have today. I think without it, there's really not much chance to reverse the course. So I think it's time, and I think the world wants it and needs it.
And what do you think is the most valuable thing that you bring to the companies you invest in?
I think it's really just experience. I think I started in venture capital almost 30 years ago, so I've been funding companies for quite a long time, pre the internet, and I think with all of the 100+ companies I've backed, I've seen almost every problem, almost every error in judgment, every failed financing, and a whole bunch of successes from the entrepreneurs that made it through all those gauntlets to actually hit it. And so I think if I'm teamed up with the right entrepreneur with good energy and good values, I can help them avoid a lot of mistakes, and I can be a sounding board as they look at opportunities to decide where to apply their energy, and with it, the team's energy and the capital that's been applied to the company. And a lot of success is of course, being on the right wave. And so I think there's kind of two components. It's, trying to judge the timing of what's happening in the environment for the entrepreneur to apply his energy, and then riding that wave in a way that they don't goof at a critical time. So if both of those happen at the same time, you might have a big outcome. And if the wave is massive, you might have something like Zoom.
Bill, you have inspired Sangha. What does it mean for you to be part of this project?
I think it's, I'm so proud to have been a catalyst for Sangha, as I am for many of the companies I've helped fuel at the beginning, whether it's a Canva or a Zoom or a Wish or what have you, because I feel like it's the right time. There's a big wave. It's something that's needed, and I can feel it. As I look at the market values that the public markets are giving to companies that also stand for good, not just profit, but for doing well by doing good. There's a premium that's assigned to companies, whether they're, in the food space like Beyond Meat, or companies that deliver products that change the, carbon footprint of this planet like Tesla. And I think the the generation of people that we have coming up, they really care about what a company stands for. And if a company doesn't, if a company doesn't stand for good, they're not interested. So I think it really is time for profit to meet social and environmental good in a way that is rewarding on all fronts. And so to help put a team in play that really cares, I'm excited to do it.
Bill, what values do you think better represent Sangha?
I think I love what Sangha stands for because they're very aligned with the values of our nonprofit. And I think as I've moved through all these waves of technology, and on the side, effectively help grow a community of people that cared about two things. One was environmental conservation, and the other is economic empowerment through entrepreneurship. Sangha is an opportunity to put those two together in one vehicle, to the extent that you as the managers can identify fantastic, interesting entrepreneurs that are seeking to hit big and also throw off on the side, substantial positive change for this planet. It's fantastic. So I think the values around this fund in particular are just great, and they align with everything I've done in my entire life.
How do you see the future?
Whoa. The future, that's a very complex question, because I think, we're in this crazy time that is a little bit dystopian, and I think we're coming out of this kind of weird political environment. I hope directionally it's going, the right direction. The future, interestingly enough, I'd say when I was younger in the 80s and 90s, the future looked a lot brighter. It always felt really bright, and it felt like incrementally every year exciting things were happening without this hidden weight of fear and danger, and things might collapse any minute. There was never a thought of that. And then I think as we rolled into the 2000s and the period that we've just been in, it's felt like technology has been progressing at an incredible pace and having incredibly positive impact, but also it wasn't thoughtful. Like it was just progress for progress's sake, and there's some after effects that were not predicted. And simultaneously, we've gone into this political and economic environment where the haves and the have-nots have spread widely. And I think there's people that understand how to participate in the economy that is ahead of us, and a lot of people left behind. And so the polarization of economic footprint has really harmed the societal structures, and also led to a lot of bad after effects in environmental areas too, where people, they're sort of slaughtering animals just to live. So I worry, and I think as we go forward in this future, technology is one of these things, and I've said this before. Technology is something that scales so rapidly, and it sometimes happens faster than you can control it, and it has after effects that are sometimes unpredictable. And we're at a point where it can both accelerate goodness or accelerate badness in really, really substantial ways very quickly. And so I think it's really incumbent upon all of us that are working in that space to be really aware of that, and to try to steer it to the good, so we don't slip down that slope really fast, because it's all very possible now. And you see that in things like think about the show, if you haven't seen it yet, Social Dilemma. No one thought about all those after effects. Even the people building the technology, they don't think about it. And you think about the kinds of technologies emerging now that should do good for this planet around things like contact tracing for COVID. Yeah, it's great to be able to contain that, but what can that be used for by nefarious forces or government. There's lots of, everything is a double-edged sword. And unless we start to apply a little bit more thought and a framework for really ethical application of that stuff, things could go haywire really fast. So that was a long-winded background to say there's a lot of potential in our future, but we've gone from something like a bicycle cruising along a little bike path to a freight train going around corners of mountains at 100 miles an hour. And the steering of that energy force matters more and more every day. So I'm glad there's people like you trying to fuel the things that matter.
I have one last question. What would be your advice to a 15-year-old today?
To just follow your passion. I think we've come through a period through the physical industrial revolution where companies were structured in a way where the owners of the capital assets could sort of contain people and put them in buildings and make them work on things that were a little bit specialized, in these giant organizations. And if you think about your parents and their parents, and maybe one more generation of parents, everybody went to go work for big companies because of the capital concentration and the concentration of power and force. And they kind of lost their way. I think if you go back 5 or 6 generations, people were more multifaceted and economies were more granular, where people really kind of did multiple things every day. And then they got turned into little like monkeys in boxes doing one thing for big companies, because that was the economic structure brought about by the physical machinery of the Industrial Revolution and the oil economy. And what we're seeing today is it's all breaking up, right? So these companies promised your parents and their parents pensions for life. That wasn't real. And never before in history had we ever had anything like that, right? So I think what's happening now is we're returning to a more granular economy where individuals can have a lot of impact from anywhere they are by leveraging software and technology and the internet. And so you're going to see a lot of little companies take control of their own destiny again. And I think when people go to work for somebody just for a job and a paycheck and it's a transaction, they're not that productive. But it's not just productive, they're just not happy. And so I think we're now going forward into a period where it's a lot easier to find your mates, find people that you feel community with through digital techniques, and to build from anywhere. Companies no longer have to be in one place, and a lot of movements can be started over the internet digitally by finding your crew. So I think, summary advice, find something you're passionate about, build it with a community of interest. There are people just like you all over the world somewhere. You just have to find them.